Welcome into the Wiltfong Whiparound with Steve Wiltfong. Today is Thursday, the 1st of May, and I'm your host, Josh Newberg. We have a lot to talk about today. Recruiting is heating up. We even got a couple number one players at their position coming off the board. So right now, we're kind of starting to enter the meat of recruiting season. We're going to cover it all today, but before we get going, guys, do me a favor and hit subscribe to the On3 Recruit channel. This is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube. We want you to be a part of it. All right, let's bring in the number one recruiting analyst in the biz, Steve Wiltfong. And where should we start? We're going to start with LSU, working to maintain that number one class. They did a good job of that this week. On Monday, a couple hours after we recorded the Wiltfong Whiparound, the number 7 ranked cornerback in the country, Hayvon Finney, committed to LSU over Michigan, Ohio State, Texas, and others. Steve, what type of priority was Finney to LSU? How big of a pickup was this?
Well, one of the most coveted targets in the secondary for DBU, Hayvon Finney Jr., a reclassification from 2027 to 2026. I believe one of the staffs that they talked to about that transition the most with was LSU and the confidence that Corey Raymond, Brian Kelly, Coach Baker, and that staff had in Finney to be able to be an impact player on the college level next year, be such a priority target for the Tigers. A lot of visits to Death Valley, including a couple trips this spring to Baton Rouge, saw LSU land one of their top targets at the position. This is a young man that's got a lot of physical upside, Josh. He's long, he's quick, he's fluid, but he's still developing physically. I think he's going to get bigger, faster, stronger on the next level. He is an instinctive, rangy defensive back. I saw him at the overtime OT7 event earlier this spring. He was one of the lockdown corners against some of the best receivers in the country. Another big pickup for LSU. Guys, it is May in Indianapolis. The Indy 500 is upon us, and there is no program going faster on the college recruiting trail right now, bang for buck, than LSU. 10 commits now, 5 in the top 100. Hayvon Finney Jr., the latest.
All right. So as we talk LSU recruiting, sitting here with the number one class this year, unlike last year, the theme hasn't been centered around the quarterback position. However, LSU does not have a quarterback committed in this class. So what is next for LSU at the quarterback position?
Well, Josh, before we even get into that, the Bengal Tiger is your home for LSU intel on the football field, on the recruiting trail. Shea Dixon, Jarrett Rozier, Julie Bodwin, and that staff on top of everything. But the posters are amazing, and I go and drop this story yesterday about LSU, their race to maintain the number one ranked recruiting class throughout the cycle, and their skepticism. Oh, it doesn't mean much. We see these articles every year, and then we finish 5th or 6th. I think the Tigers have staying power this year. I think Austin Thomas and that off-field recruiting staff have all their ducks in a row from an infrastructure standpoint. This coaching staff does a great job of building meaningful relationships. And I think Brian Kelly's a great closer on the trail. As a head coach, he is as eloquent in his message about why a kid should play within his program when he gets to sit down in front of a prospect. I think he should do it more. That's how good I think he is at it. Quarterback is going to be key for LSU this cycle. As you said, they didn't sign one last year. They had the devastating flip. Bryce Underwood, the number one player in the country, flipping from LSU to Michigan, and all that that played out with that one. But LSU, is there a program that is doing better with the quarterback position in college football over the last 5, 6, 7 years? I don't think there is. A couple Heisman trophies, a couple first-round draft picks, guys that are immediate difference makers with NFL franchises, and Joe Burrows and Jaden Daniels. And I think Nussmeier's next. He is my preseason Heisman favorite. You guys heard me say that back in December when we did the early signing period show with you, J.D. Piquel, myself, and Chad Simmons. I've maintained it. I think he's going to have a fabulous year. I think LSU's in the national title hunt, and Nussmeier is going to have a huge year. So they got a lot to sell at that position. A guy that's really looking to perhaps buy is Bo Bentley. He is the number 5 ranked quarterback in the country per On3, a top 10 signal caller per the On3 industry. He's from Salina, Texas. He's a state champ. He's prolific. He's dual threat. He played in the All-America Bowl. LSU's in the final three. You have Oklahoma, LSU, and Georgia. I put LSU in the 2-hole going into official visits, but they've been closing fast on Oklahoma. He's a lifelong Sooners fan, loves Coach Arbuckle over there with Oklahoma, has built a really good relationship with him, has talked with their transfer quarterback, John Mateer, about playing against Brent Venables' defense in practice. Oklahoma cannot be slept on from a proximity standpoint, a fandom standpoint. I still give them the edge, but LSU is their biggest threat, in my opinion, because of the way they've developed quarterbacks, how quickly he's built a connection with Joe Sloan, and then his visit to campus, he loved it, not just the support the football program gets, but the support all the athletic programs that LSU get, he said was one of the highlights, from the way they support women's basketball, baseball, everything under that LSU umbrella is Go Tigers, and Bo Bentley's feeling it.
All right, well, as we currently talk, LSU has the number 1 class in America, but they only have 1 5-star committed in Tristan Keys. Tigers look like they're hunting for more 5-stars. Steve, what's the latest intel on these top targets?
Yeah, quite a few 5-stars still in play in LSU, and that's how you finish with the number 1 ranked class. You got to close more of those 5-stars. Number 2 player in the country, Emmanuel Manny Iannaccio from Baltimore, Maryland. This has been a very fluid recruitment. I talked to a source yesterday that thinks LSU is in the top 2 with Oregon. Now, he named Oregon his leader recently following a visit to Eugene in the same, but he had a great visit to LSU, big needle mover. If you look at Brian Kelly, and we've said this a lot on the Wiltfong Whiparound, the track record of offensive development under his watch, it is such a priority. And some of the best offensive linemen in the NFL have come from Brian Kelly coach teams. Zach Martin's probably been the best offensive lineman in the NFL over the last 15 years, wouldn't you say, Josh? Then you got Quentin Nelson in there. Ronnie Stanley's an all-pro. Joe Alt goes in the first round. And then you have guys like Will Campbell. He's starting the next LSU wave, the number 4 pick in the latest draft. There is a lot to sell for LSU. Coach Davis does a phenomenal job of really connecting with their top targets at the position. I talked about the infrastructure with Austin Thomas and his staff that you're going to have to get a guy like Iannaccio to get these 5-stars. So LSU is in the middle of that race. The number 1 recruit in state, the number 1 athlete in the country. You don't normally hear athlete recruit with someone the size of Lamar Brown, but he has the traits to be a standout offensive lineman, standout defensive lineman on the next level. He's got his eye on playing on the defensive front in college. LSU's where the on-3 RPM's at. A&M's in there. Miami's in there. He's fresh off a visit to USC. There's some others he's keeping warm. LSU, the Aggies are battling. He's been to A&M several times, so don't sleep on them. But certainly LSU, always tough to beat for local kids out of University Lab. Anthony Tank Jones is a 5-star edge, number 1 player in Alabama. Alabama, Auburn, obviously in that one. But LSU's been a program that he's kept warm most of his process. We know they're not going to go away on Blaine Bradford, number 3 safety in the country. His brother's a true freshman at LSU. He's committed to Ohio State. It's going to be a tough road to flip him. The Buckeyes have been proven tough to flip on over the last few cycles, even in this new age of recruiting. But they're going to keep trying to chip away at Blaine Bradford. Another prospect that they're maybe in the top 2 for, source thought so this week, is Darius Gray. He's the number 1 interior offensive lineman in the country. He's from the state of Virginia. Josh, he's got 10 official visits scheduled. My man Darius was at Virginia this past weekend. You know what I think of when I think of official visits? Eating. And this dude is going on 10 trips where he's going to get surf and turf. He's going to show up for these trips 285. He's going to walk out 305. He's going to have to watch the food as he you eat every 3-4 hours on these visits. So Darius Gray, they're going to be rolling out the red carpet. They're going to be feeding him and his family well. But all kidding aside, 10 official visits planned for the spring, summer. I think LSU is near the top of his list. Obviously, my on-3 RPM is on South Carolina. I think he's had some really great visits to Clemson. Ohio State's in there, Michigan, to name a few. But LSU is his dream school. He loves the way they develop offensive linemen, loves Coach Davis, loves the program in general. LSU is in the middle of that recruitment, and they're also a front runner for Jamarian Carlton, 5-star defensive lineman out of the Lone Star State, had a really good visit to LSU this spring. He'll be back for an official visit this summer, and the Tigers are in that one as well.
And those are just the 5-stars that LSU's tracking. Who else is on your radar right now for the Tigers?
Well, obviously, the on-3 industry's number 4 receiver, Ethan Feaster out of DeSoto, Texas. LSU is the on-3 RPM pick. He's been to A&M a few times this spring. You got Miami, USC, some others involved. But talking to a source close to Feaster coming out of his latest A&M trip, they said that LSU is still number 1. They're swinging at guys like Joel Wyatt, the number 3 athlete in the country. They like him at safety. Alabama linebacker J.J. Bush is maybe their most coveted second-level defender. They're in really good position for him. A couple Mississippi offensive linemen are coveted targets, Bryson Cooley. And if Emmanuel Tucker decommits from Mississippi State, keep an eye on LSU. Jace Matthews is one of the top receivers in the country. They had him on campus. 2 new on-3 RPMs, Josh, in the secondary from in-state, Hayward Howard Jr. and Des Ellis. Those are a couple guys I like LSU to ultimately land, along with in-state defensive lineman Darius McKinley. There's a lot of other big names on the board this summer. They'll get touted corner Chauncey Kennan in for an official. They'll get Sunshine State pass rusher Trenton Henderson back after a visit this spring. LSU is going to be a place that you got to keep an eye on. They have the number 1 class in the country. They're trying to maintain it. The juice is on the board. We're going to be covering it here on the On3 Recruits channel, so hit like and subscribe. A lot of intel is going to be on the Bengal Tiger, so get your On3 subscription to read the Bengal Tiger. We're going to have it all, man, but LSU is a team to follow heading into the summer.
Let's talk a little Colorado recruiting as Deion Sanders and the Buffs have a huge recruiting weekend lined up in Boulder. Every prospect visiting is a blue chip recruit. And Steve, as we always say on the Wiltfong Whiparound, if Deion's recruiting them, he sees them as difference makers as a true freshman. So how big of a weekend are we looking at in Boulder?
Well, it's shoot your shot weekend for Colorado as they host many of the nation's top prospects, top 100 recruits from coast to coast, local, all the way out to Florida, coming to Boulder this weekend to spend some time on an official visit with Deion Sanders and his coaching staff. Great intrigue from these prospects in the Buffs. Look forward to learning more. And that list starts with 5-star Felix Ojo. He's the number 1 recruit in the state of Texas, number 3 offensive tackle in the land, number 4 player overall. Texas and Ohio State have been considered the front runners. He was at Texas Tech this past weekend. He's also already taken an official visit to Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Michigan involved. But he's very excited to get up to Colorado, see what Deion Sanders and company have cooking. IMG Academy edge rusher Jake Krull. He's a top 50 prospect overall, one of the most coveted pass rushers in this cycle. He is visiting this weekend Oklahoma, Texas, Penn State, Ohio State, some of the other places he has been this spring. His IMG teammate, Colorado native Brett Collegier. This is one where Colorado has been one of the favorites. He's been to campus numerous times. He is back this weekend. Georgia, LSU, Miami, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Texas, some that Colorado's battling. Deacon Schmidt is the key in-state target, 4-star offensive tackle, USC and some others involved there, but Colorado's always been well-positioned. He loves the game day atmosphere, the community, the new coaching staff. He's really connected with them. There's going to be some playmakers there. Receiver Jace Matthews, number 8 receiver per the On3 industry out of Mississippi, will be out. The number 4 running back in the land, KJ Edwards. A lot of Texas A&M buzz around Edwards, but Colorado looking to muck that up a little bit this weekend. Gavin Mueller's a tight end that's committing on May 15th. The Buffaloes are in the Final Four with LSU, Notre Dame, and Wisconsin. They're looking to put their best foot forward. And then the number 2 athlete in the country, Jalen Lott, could play receiver, could play corner. He is visiting this weekend, and no program can point towards a dual side of the ball athlete more than Colorado right now. Obviously, Travis Hunter wins the Heisman Trophy. They believe in their guys. They give them the opportunity to shine and pull the best out of them. Certainly, they'll be able to point to Travis Hunter and say, we have a track record of playing guys both ways. If that's something that's intriguing to you, because there's some schools that love Jalen Lott as a corner, some that like him as a wide receiver. Oregon's where my On3 RPM is, but USC just had him on campus. Heard it was a fabulous visit. He's one of their top overall targets. Ohio State, Georgia involved, but Colorado gets Jalen Lott on campus on the heels of Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter being the best 2-way player in college football history, winning the Heisman Trophy, and then seeing the Jacksonville Jaguars trade up to number 2 to land him in the draft. A lot to point to for Jalen Lott going into his visit to Colorado.
Yeah, and Steve, we know this is a big weekend, lots of top names on campus, but before we even get to the weekend, the Buffs added their first commitment of the cycle, could be adding more this weekend, but tell us about their first commitment.
Yeah, the Buffs added edge rusher D'Amato Pecco Jr. His dad is obviously on the Colorado coaching staff, had a long career in the NFL, has a ton of pedigree. Pecco's got a lot of upside. He was a guy that Deion Sanders and company certainly loved. Get the class rolling, a guy that plays the game right, has all the intangibles, has some explosive, twitchy pass rush ability. Really good start to this Colorado class, and they look to make some hay with some of these elite guys this weekend.
All right. We will certainly be following some of these storylines coming out of Boulder this weekend. Exciting times for Colorado recruiting. We got to talk a little Nebraska recruiting because the Huskers get their quarterback. He announced it on Thursday. 6'3", 190-pound Trey Taylor picked Nebraska over LSU, Michigan, Nebraska, A&M, and others. He's a top 5 quarterback in the 2027 cycle. Steve, what's Nebraska getting here?
The On3 Industry slots him number 3 at the position, number 40 overall. Josh, this may be the first prospect in the 2027 class that I had met in person. He's been on the radar since 7th grade. Quarterback trainer Donovan Dooley playing 7-on-7 with the folks at Maximum Exposure, Sound Mind, Sound Body up there in the Detroit area. He's a guy that's been on the radar for a long time, can really spin the football, 6'3", 190 pounds, uber competitive, very seasoned on the camp and 7-on-7 trail, plays for 24K in the 7-on-7 realm out of Mundelein, Illinois, Carmel Catholic High School, LSU, Illinois, Texas A&M, some of the finalists, but Matt Rule and company get their guy, got him to campus numerous times, including couple times this calendar year. He's been to games in the past. He loves Nebraska's pro-style offense, the NFL pedigree from Matt Rule on down, on the coaching staff, the vibe in Lincoln, the fans, the program's trajectory, and then being able to be a day one starter. He talked about that. Dylan Raiola is going into his sophomore year. He'll be a junior when Trey Taylor's a senior. Obviously, you're hoping that goes right, and Dylan Raiola is off to greener pastures as a first rounder following his junior season, and then Trey Taylor gets to come in there and compete for the starting job as a true freshman. All those stars aligned for him to commit to Nebraska.
All right. So, Steve, getting a commitment like this at the quarterback position, does this go a long way? It won't help Nebraska recruit because by the sounds of it, one, he's a top 5 player at his position, but also he's on this 7-on-7 circuit. He's going to be around other Nebraska targets for really the next year and a half. How big of a commitment is this early on?
Yeah, he's one of the more known guys in the 2027 class. Again, a guy that's been out there for 4 or 5 years already. So his peers know him. He's very active on social media. So all his peers that follow him are going to see how excited he is to be a Husker. And then, so he'll be able to help recruit the 2026 class, certainly guys in the 2027 class. And then ultimately some guys that rise up in the 2028 class when he's on campus. He's going to spend a lot of time in Lincoln over the next 2 years, being around the staff, being around the program, trying to get in the playbook. He's uber competitive. And then certainly he'll be able to also help recruit.
Yeah. All right. Exciting time. Nebraska fans, talk to Steve and I. How you feeling about this pickup? It's a big one. Let us know. Let's talk a little Indiana Hoosier recruiting because they got some stuff going on up in Indy. Tell us about it, Steve.
The Hoosiers coming off a college football playoff, Josh. A lot of excitement around Indiana. Kurt Signetti and his program, a historical season in Bloomington. They've been hosting top targets this spring, and it is now closing time for the Big Ten program. I've logged a few predictions in favor of Indiana this week. Let's start with one of the most coveted point of attack players in the state, defensive lineman Blake Smythe. He's out of Franklin, Indiana. He's got offers from Illinois, Michigan State, Purdue, Wisconsin, to name a few, but I like where IU stands. Pat Kuntz and company doing an excellent job. Signetti's involved. He's the number 10 player in the state. I have an On3 RPM in favor of Indiana to land Blake Smythe. probably one of my biggest predictions of the week is for on 300 running back Damon Ferguson. He's out of Baltimore, Milford Mill Academy. He took his official visit to Indiana over the weekend. He gave that trip high marks, loves the way that they utilize the running backs in that offense, the culture, the trajectory of the program, his relationships with the staff. He's got offers from the likes of Ohio State, North Carolina, Pittsburgh, Duke. I think Indiana's the team to beat. My on 3 RPM reflects that now. Indiana's still kind of looking for their quarterback. And if you look at Curt Cignetti's track record at the position, his last 4 signal callers have been the conference offensive player of the year, including Curtis Rourke in the Big Ten Conference this past season. Nathan Bernard is a guy that I predicted to Indiana. Now, that's kind of a long play prediction for me. He just committed to App State. He is one of the top guys on the board for Indiana, but they're waiting to see just kind of how things play out this summer, continue to evaluate the position. They can be picky with the success they've had. Luke Fahey out of Mission Viejo is obviously one of their top targets. He's going to take an official this summer. But I think Nathan Bernard is someone that's just kind of lying in the weeds. Anytime they hit the gas there for the Ashland, Ohio product, I think they can get them. So my on 3 RPM reflects that. A couple more key in-state targets for Indiana. They're in some big boy recruiting battles, Josh. Let's talk about former Penn State commit Jaquaden Guilford. He's from Fort Wayne. Indiana's in the top 2 with Ohio State. Mike Shanahan, Indiana's offensive coordinator, was out there earlier this week. So was Brian Hartline from Ohio State. The Buckeyes are juggling some guys at the position, but they definitely like Guilford. He is one of Indiana's top offensive targets, regardless of position. That's the top 2. It'll be interesting to see how things shake out, but I could see him in Indiana's class. And then this weekend, they host one of their top offensive line targets from up in the region area. Indiana Hoosiers know what I'm talking about when I say the region area. That area right outside of Chicagoland in northwest Indiana. Cameron Miller will be back in Bloomington. He is as coveted a player as there is in the class, regardless of position. Offensive tackle with a ton of upside. That region area is a kind of a hidden gem in the Midwest. A lot of guys go on to the NFL. Kenneth Grant from Michigan being the latest first rounder from the region. Miller is a guy that Indiana will certainly be excited to have on campus this weekend. It'll be full go. Wouldn't be surprised if I'm predicting him to IU coming out of this weekend, Josh.
Let's talk some USC Trojan recruiting, Steve. We talk a lot of USC on the Wiltfong Whiparound. It seems like big visit weekend after big visit weekend for the Trojans, and they're inching towards that number 1 class. It seems like they have a lot of momentum right now. How do they get to number 1?
Well, we started the show talking about LSU's path to number 1. The Tigers are currently sitting atop the on 3 industry standings. They're in on 5 stars and blue chippers that could help them finish atop the standings. USC is right behind them at number 2. They had a big pickup out of Louisiana on Wednesday night. On 300 receiver Roderick Tizino committed to the Trojans. He was offered this spring, visited for a second time for the Trojan Olympics over the weekend. They get the playmaker in the fold. They are trending for several more prospects that visited over the weekend. We talked about some of it on Monday's Whip Around, but let's bring Keeney Pepe back up, the number 5 offensive tackle in the land for the on 3 industry out of IMG Academy. Miami is a major player, but USC getting 2 spring visits, including a surprise visit for Trojan Olympics. I love the way that one's trending for the Trojans right now. He's one that could help USC move to number 1. Another one that made a second visit this spring for Trojan Olympics is the number 4 cornerback in the country, Elbert Hill IV. He is out of Akron, Ohio. I logged an on 3 RPM in favor of the Trojans before Trojan Olympics. I feel even better about that pick right now, Josh. I think USC is really pulling away. The relationship with Coach Riley, Coach Lynn, Coach Belt, Coach Reed, Coach Weston, one of the best off-field recruiters in the land, the trajectory of the program, getting around the off-field opportunities that USC has. This is a young man that wants to do real estate for a living, get around the moguls. USC alum on his last visit was a big needle mover. And I have a new prediction for USC. They offered on 300 receiver Luke Weaver out of Sherman Oaks, Notre Dame High in state on April 24th. He had 53 catches, over 1,000 yards receiving, 10 touchdowns. He's been to campus this spring. I think USC became the one to beat when they offered. My on-3 RPM now reflects that. So USC trending heavy for a few top targets. And then this week, over the next 2 days, coaches are on the road. They're pounding the pavement locally, going out to see a lot of their most coveted targets. Guys like Devon Benjamin, the number 2 corner in the country per on-3. Vance Spafford, he's a receiver committed to Georgia. They've gotten to campus a couple times. Richard Wesley is a coveted defensive lineman from Sierra Canyon that they're battling Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, and Texas A&M for. So those are just some of the local names. Samuelo Utu is a 4-star offensive lineman they'd love to land. So coaches are on the road. They're trending for top recruits that were at Trojan Olympics. USC, number 2 class in the country, right on the heels of LSU. There's a path for both of them to finish number 1. The Trojans are a program that has some of the most momentum in the 2026 cycle right now.
Steve, why does this year feel different from last year? Last year, we saw the Trojans load up early with elite recruits, but by this time last year, things were starting to fall apart. But this year, not only is it solid, but it feels like they're going to add more. What do you credit this success to?
Well, I thought they showed some promising flashes during the season. So first and foremost, you got to do it on the field. I think they got a good football team coming back. They signed a good recruiting class. They pour a lot into recruiting from relationships and investment. And they went out and added Chad Bowden, Dre Brown to the off-field recruiting department. Those are 2 of the best in the industry. You put them in the room with Weston. That's a super staff of off-field staffers, and that's just the tip of the iceberg for their army there. But their defensive coaching staff back for a second year. I know they lost Coach Entz to the head job at Fresno State, but then you bring in Coach Ryan, the rock star, to replace him. So they got a great coaching staff that builds real relationships with NFL pedigree. Lincoln Riley's been to several college football playoffs. He's had several Heisman Trophy winners. There's a lot of support for this program from alumni and all the things you need to be competitive in the new era of college football. USC has it. It's all coming together. I think they're going to have an awesome season, but they got to do that to get it to the finish line. But right now, there's a lot of excitement around the program. There's great relationships with the program. There's a lot of infrastructure with the program, and that's why we're seeing these results right now.
Steve, lots of big commitments coming up, so let's preview these. On Saturday, we'll have 4-star running back Javian Osborne announcing his decision. And this one comes down to just 2 teams. You got Michigan, you got Notre Dame. How you feeling about 48 hours ahead of this one?
Still feeling the Irish for this one. Got him to campus a couple times this spring. Built a fast rapport with Jawan Sider. Fell in love with Marcus Freeman, the culture of the program, the atmosphere and environment in South Bend, the Golden Dome, Touchdown Jesus, the success they're having at the running back position. Jeremiah Love, the number 1 tailback in the country coming into this season. The way that they work in several running backs, Jadarian Price, Aeneas Williams. It's a ground attack. It's something that he really loves. Now, Michigan was a program that has led in this recruitment as well. You cannot sleep on the maize and blue as they try and rally here late. He also visited Michigan for the spring game, but I still like the Irish. Number 4 class in the country. Could be another big month for them after a fabulous April. Javian Osborne could get it kick-started.
All right, let's go from Texas to California, because just a day later on Sunday, we're going to get elite wide receiver Caden Dixon Wyatt at Mater Dei High School out there in Santa Ana, California, making his decision. And this has been a heated battle. You got Alabama, you got Ohio State, you got Oregon, Texas, and USC. How do you like this one shaking out?
Well, my understanding is Caden Dixon Wyatt knows where he's going this weekend. These schools are all just waiting in anticipation to find out if it's them. Oregon, Ohio State, USC, the 3 you're looking at the most. Ohio State and Oregon have both appeared to lead at some point here this spring. And then USC got them back to campus. Huge priority. They got a lot of infrastructure behind their recruitment right now, and a lot of receiver pedigree under Lincoln Riley, Coach Simmons and company. So maybe they rise up. But Oregon, Ohio State, been very prominent, and it'll be exciting to see where Caden Dixon Wyatt lands this weekend. Both those programs have a chance to finish number 1. Certainly USC does. Caden Dixon Wyatt is as coveted as it gets on the offensive side of the ball for all 3.
Yeah, and this year with USC recruiting in-state the way that they are, they're going to be dangerous here on May 4th. All right, these commitments all set the stage for Monday, May 5th. We got the number one quarterback in America, Jared Curtis. He's already decommitted from Georgia once. Now he's going to make his decision. Will it be the Dogs or will it be the Ducks? How do you see it shaking out?
Still see scenarios where either team wins out. I would say my intel still gives the inch or two to Georgia at this point, but Oregon, their offense track record of quarterback development from Bo Nix to Dylan Gabriel, just the feel around the program, the relationship he has with Coach Deion and company. Jared Curtis loves Oregon, could see himself at Oregon, but proximity to home, Georgia's historical track record as a team, conversations with Mike Bobo, Kirby Smart, has the Dogs right there at the end, looking to bring this recruitment full circle. He decommitted from Georgia in the fall. It's been a back and forth slobber knocker with Georgia and Oregon since then. Georgia doing what they can to get Jared Curtis in the fold on Monday.
All right. So we'll have Jared Curtis on Monday, and then we'll have Jackson Cantwell, the number one overall recruit in America, number one offensive tackle, number one overall recruit, May 13th. Now, originally, he was expected to make that announcement yesterday, but he ends up pushing it back 2 weeks to May 13th after another visit to Oregon and another visit to Georgia. How do you see this Jackson Cantwell recruitment?
Had Jackson Cantwell stuck with that original commitment date, had he not already taken an official visit to Oregon, and had he not planned one to Georgia, I think he would have used that date to commit to the Miami Hurricanes. Now Mario Cristobal and his Miami program are going to really have to battle the Ducks and Bulldogs to get that one to the finish line. I continue to believe, and he had a fabulous visit to Oregon over the weekend, one that moved the needle, one that showed him he could be successful on and off the field, and the way they support their student athletes there, Oregon, the two-sport plan, all of that. I think it has given him a lot to chew on, a lot to think about. My on 3 RPMs on Georgia, I'm still riding with that one. He visits Georgia on May 10th ahead of his May 13th official visit. No relationship that he has is stronger than the one he has with offensive line coach Stacy Searles and company. The way Georgia keeps pumping out offensive linemen to the NFL, I think Georgia's infrastructure off the field is as good as it's been in the NIL era. So I'm still with Georgia, with Oregon and Miami pushing the Dogs here down the stretch.
All right. Well, the next commitment we're going to talk about isn't happening in the month of May. We're going to talk about five-star Brandon Arrington because coming off that Oregon spring game, he set an announcement date for July 5th. Now, we still have some time until Brandon Arrington comes off the board, but because he set the date just yesterday, wanted to get your opinion on his recruitment now that we have an official decision date.
And visits have been so impactful for Brandon Arrington. He's taken 2 to Oregon this calendar year. I like the way it's setting up for Oregon, but Dan Lanning and company have major competition. He's had a great visit to Alabama. He loves that they're starting 2 corners from California in their secondary. He's been to Texas A&M a bunch of times, feels comfortable and at home, loves the trajectory that Mike Elko and his program are on. USC, he's been to the local campus several times. A lot of love for USC as they put together a special class, particularly in the secondary. Georgia's involved, led by Dante Williams. But Oregon is just the program that intrigues me most right now going into his next wave of visits. He can see himself there. Loves what Coach Tosh Lupoy and those guys have done in the secondary. Coach Hampton, Dan Lanning, and what he's been around historically. Again, the support that their athletes get on and off the field. The opportunity to run track in Eugene at Hayward Field as your home meet. All that stuff. I like where Oregon stands, but we'll see where the next wave of visits go. We'll see what the off-field opportunities look like before this young man who is explosive. Not many in this class, if any, run like Brandon Arrington. And these programs are running fast trying to get them in the fold.
All right, some decision dates getting set up. How are you guys feeling about the ones we talked about? Give us your prediction on where you think these elite recruits are going to land.
Thanks for tuning into the Wiltfong Whiparound. Please hit like and subscribe to the On 3 Recruits channel, and we will be back next Monday to break down these commitments, visits, and more from the trail.